All right, well, we might get started, and those that are still yet to join can sign in and hopefully come in just as we're ready to start with the actual presentation. So thank you to those who have signed in on time. This is the first of two sessions we're running, targeted to help you with your accreditation application. And we're running these sessions on the two areas of the application that we find can take the most time to complete. And generally it's the areas that we find ourselves having to return the applications just because we need a little bit more detail in these two sections. So we hope that you'll find today's session practical and it will leave you with a better understanding of what's required and the direction for your business and marketing planning. So I'm very pleased to introduce Derek Shepherd, our facilitator for today's session. Derek Shepherd is a tourism planning and management advisor with an extensive background in the airline, travel, tourism and accommodation industries. He has over 40 years experience at senior executive management level with a number of high-profile international companies, including Thomas Cook & Son, QANTAS, Flag International Motels and Resorts, Hayman Island Resort, Ansett International, Ansett Australia and Big Four holiday parks. Derek is a past member of Tourism Australia's industry advisory panels for Asia, Japan, UK, Europe, the Americas and New Zealand, a member of the Australian Tourism Export Council and a past chairman of the Adelaide Convention and Tourism Authority. He was a Victorian Tourism Awards judge for 3 years and chair of the Victorian Tourism Awards mentor panel for another 3 years. Derek is a founding member of Tourism Macedon Rangers, past chair of Daylesford and the Macedon Rangers Tourism, and past chair of Great Ocean Road Marketing. As the principal of Arbold Consulting, a tourism planning and management advisory service, Derek has been conducting our accreditation and star rating site visits for the past 9 years. So he's very well versed in what you'll need to get through for your application. So I'll just go over some housekeeping very quickly before we start. So your microphone has been muted and your camera is off. Please use the Q&A box to submit any questions you've got. And just to note that this session will be recorded as well, so you'll be free to come back and listen again to Derek's nuggets of wisdom. And if you do have to leave at any point, you won't miss out on any of the content. So thank you very much, Derek. Now over to you.
Thanks very much, Grace, and good morning, everyone. This morning, I'm going to be assisting you in preparing a business plan and a marketing plan from a basic perspective and suitable for a small business. It does not attempt to address the complexities of business planning and marketing planning, but more appropriate, as I say, to a business that is being run locally and by one or two people. So the agenda today comprises the importance of business planning, how to structure your business plan, marketing planning, and then subsequently accreditation requirements and the support that you will receive from the accreditation office. So first of all, in terms of business planning, why do business planning? Well, all of us in our lives conduct planning of some sort or another. And planning is essential to the success of any business. A good business plan can turn an idea from a thought process to a great success, and it's an essential tool for all businesses. It's a written document that describes how your business defines its objectives and how it will achieve its goals. As they say, if you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there. And that's not what we want to do. We want to be able to set some clear aims and goals and be successful in what we do. That's whether it's with our personal lives or with our business lives. It will help you to keep focused and be more effective at management, and will ensure your business runs smoothly and efficiently. It can be a one-page document or a series of documents. And I always say to people when I'm visiting and I'm sitting in somebody's kitchen and reviewing their business plan. Look, this doesn't need to be difficult. Let's not make it difficult. It can be one page, as I mentioned, or if it sprays onto 3 or 4 pages, well, that's okay as well. The important thing is that it is readable, it's understandable, it's applicable, and it can be interpreted by third parties, and they can understand exactly what it is you're trying to achieve. So it's the KISS principle all over again. It's just keep it simple. As I say, planning is essential for both personally and professionally. It helps us to achieve goals and allows for more efficient use of time. Business and marketing planning are linked. Personally, I like to have 2 separate documents. Quite often people don't understand the difference between a business plan and a marketing plan. A business plan essentially is setting the long-term aims and objectives of where your business wants to be and how you're going to get there, and the various resources that you're going to use to enable you to achieve those objectives. Your business plan will assist, though, with setting your marketing goals and strategies. As I say, your marketing plan can be a separate document or included throughout the business plan. There's no strict rule that says they have to be separate documents. Personally, I like them to be separate. I like to be able to see and have that disciplined approach where I know where my business is going on the one hand and my marketing activity is going on the other. But a marketing plan can be integrated into the business plan as you progress through that plan and you add various marketing elements to the business objectives. Importantly, as I think I referred to just now, getting it on one page, every plan should be appropriate to the size of the business. Let's not overthink this. It's too difficult to get totally immersed and become overwrought almost with trying to put it on into a document, and you lose sight of where you want to be. I'm sure everyone here or is attending this morning will at some stage or another have approached a bank or a lending organization for some funds to assist them either with startup or for expansion or the like. And every bank or lending institution will always ask for a business plan and cash flow. And the bank does not want long, complicated documents. This is not QANTAS or BHP. This is a one-person organization, or it might be 2 or 3 people, but essentially running small businesses. So every plan should be appropriate to the size and the complexity of the business. However, planning is only the beginning. It's not the end. And above all, the plan must be flexible. You should review its progress and relevance quarterly, because all businesses would have had a plan in place last January and February. And then, of course, we got to March and April, and you could just about throw that plan out the window. Well, I'm sure everybody did. So that's a classic example. Hopefully none of us will live through it again, but it's a classic example of how the plan just needs to be flexible and you're able to be nimble and change stance and direction within 24 hours even. And you can do that, of course, with a small business. So just moving along, the structure of a business plan, and we can see half a dozen items there on the screen. Now you might think, goodness, how am I going to get all that on one page? Well, you'd be surprised that you can get that on one page. Those headings can be covered in most instances, not always, by just 1 or 2 paragraphs. It's setting the scene. So the document has to set your aims and objectives and benchmarks, as we've discussed already. And this helps with providing a clear and cohesive direction for you and for your team if you employ staff, or to keep you on track if you're a sole trader. So the vital elements are, as you see now, the history and background I always think are very important, because whenever I go into a business and sit down with the owner, if I haven't been there before, it's always nice to know, well, how did this business come about? And there are some amazing stories out there. Some people have a vision of their own. They get up in the morning or in the shower and they realize there's a business opportunity to be had. And they put that thought down on a piece of paper and out of that becomes quite often a very successful and thriving business. So it's always good to put down what the history and background is. It might be a business you've bought already, that's already well established, but you may have changed its positioning, or you may have changed its direction, or the decor of the building, or the restaurant, or the accommodation. But somewhere there's always going to be history and background. Just try and document that in, say, 2 or 3 sentences or just a couple of paragraphs. It's very interesting, and it reminds everybody from where we came, and it's important. Secondly, the vision and the mission, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. But again, visions and missions, people say sometimes to me, oh, that's a waste of time, you know, vision and mission, that's just flowery words. And I say, well, you know, it can be, if that's what you set out to achieve, is something with flowery words, but it's not. It's a very important couple of statements which document how we see our business in the long term and where we see it in the short to medium term. But I'll go into that in a little more detail. But again, it's a couple of paragraphs. Thirdly, the SWOT analysis. We all know what SWOT analyses are, and we'll discuss that in a little more detail shortly. Importantly then, goals and strategies for the business. Now, these are not necessarily the marketing goals and strategies, but they are goals and strategies that relate to what I consider are 4 important elements of a business plan. Now, these are not necessarily in order of importance, but infrastructure. So what infrastructure do you have? It might be bricks and mortar. It might be a restaurant or a cafe or a motel or a caravan park. It might be infrastructure that you use for sightseeing. It might be a bus or a coach. It might be surfboards, whatever it is. But there is infrastructure. And around that, there will be some objectives and some strategies. Then there is human resources, HR. It might just be one person. I've talked to many people, and they said, well, I say, well, what are your HR resources here? And they say, well, you're looking at him or her. So, and that's it. On the other end, I might be sitting in the boardroom of the Grand Hyatt in Collins Street, and I know without asking that it's an enormous global infrastructure that they have, but everything's relevant. It's the same principles that apply. Thirdly is IT. Without IT these days, we go nowhere. And the vast majority of people are using IT. Very, very occasionally, I will meet somebody who documents everything by pen and paper, including their bookkeeping. And look, you can say, well, that's okay, but it might not make you as productive and efficient as you probably could be. That leads into finance, of course, and finance is another important element, critical element of business planning, setting budgets, targets, sourcing funds to fund expansion and the like. And finally, marketing. Now, as I said, marketing can be a separate document or it can be included within the business plan. So just to repeat, infrastructure, human resources, IT, finance and marketing are the key components of the business plan. So as you can see, history, background, vision and mission, SWOT, goals and strategies, financial analysis and marketing analysis. And we'll look at a couple of those in more detail. So moving on to vision and mission, as I say, your vision statement is where you hope your business will end up in the long term if you fulfill your mission. It's a long term. I'm a big picture person by nature. I like to look at things big picture. And then the mission statement is the overall purpose of the business today and in the midterm. So, for example, a vision statement can project, say, 5 to 10 years in the future. You should dream big, focus on success, use the present tense, use clear, concise, jargon-free language, and infuse it with passion and make it inspiring. Now, for example, I'll give you a couple of examples here. QANTAS, who I spent 20 years with some years ago, and was heavily involved in their marketing planning in the UK and Europe, they have a very simple vision statement. And we all know how large the organization is, and their vision statement is quite simply to be a great airline that champions the spirit of Australia. That's what their vision is globally. And that's what everybody recognizes Qantas around the world, whether you're in UK, Europe, whether you're in the Americas, the Africa, Middle East, Asia, and so on. Qantas carries the flag for Australia globally. Their mission statement is, we are Australia's leading premium airline, and we are dedicated to being the best. We aim to meet your expectations every time you fly, so we continue to invest in our business and will always strive to provide you with an exceptional level of service. So that really encapsulates really what every business strives to do. And I'm looking at the businesses that are represented here this morning, and you could change a few words in that mission statement that Qantas has to suit whether you are an accommodation provider, a tour operator, a food and beverage provider. Similar sort of visions and missions can be applied to your business. And there are, it's a variation of words, but as long as it's relevant and appropriate to your business and it includes some passion and provides inspiration to you and your customers. So the situation analysis, the SWOT analysis, and I'm sure we've all been involved in those over the years. They're not difficult to do, but they do require a little bit of thought and sometimes a little bit of brainstorming with people outside of your business, because people outside of your business will view it differently to you. Sometimes we get too close to the action and we fail to see what the threats are and what the opportunities might be. So internally are the strengths and weaknesses, and externally are the opportunities and threats. So this is a classic template that we're looking at here. The strengths, for example, high traffic location. Your other strengths might be high quality trained staff. Weaknesses, we've got one there, high rental costs or lack of human resource. Opportunities, build on customer and brand loyalty. Another one might be that we are in an area where there is not a provider of the product or services that we are now providing. So there's an opportunity for us to capitalize on that. And threats, cash flow problems due to peak season, high seasons, low seasons, and the like. So all of these strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats should be gone into in quite some considerable depth. And particularly as we've seen this year with COVID, there are any number of threats surrounding health where if a key staff member falls ill, like a chef or a cook or the manager of your motel or accommodation, you know, what is your backup plan to enable your business to continue uninterrupted? These are important considerations. So I can't overemphasize the need to continually look at what your SWOT is. And there will be, hopefully, situations where you move threats from threats into strengths and from weaknesses into opportunities, so that you can move certain identified issues from one category to another. So goals and strategies, forgive me if I just go back slightly and then that's better. So with business planning, with goals and strategies, one thing I just wanted to mention, and with goals and strategies, people sometimes get confused between goals, objectives, strategies, and tactics. Goals and objectives are similar. Goals can be long-term goals, as we're talking about for a business. Objectives can be shorter-term goals and more likely to be used in a marketing plan. So if you're going to include your marketing plan in the business plan, you would begin to talk about objectives. But I'll talk a little bit more about that when we come onto the marketing planning side of the business. The strategies are the how we're going to achieve the goals or the objectives, and the tactics are the specific activities that you undertake that underpin the strategies. Now, I can talk more about that if you wish later on, but it's important to understand the difference between those four groups. Strategies, sometimes people write strategies and they are in fact objectives in their own right. So we just have to be careful about that when you read them. The strategy is the how to. So and the goal and the objective is the what we're going to achieve. So why do we do business planning with goals and strategies? Well, goals and action plans guide your daily, weekly and monthly activities. They provide a direction for decision making, measuring the success of the business, and provide a focus for staff or yourself, because it's easy to get lost in the day-to-day running of your business, and it's good to have documented goals to refer to when you feel overwhelmed. And I speak to so many people that are hands-on in their business, which is fantastic. They're experts in their business, but their planning and their focus on the structure behind it that needs to be put into place, those disciplines, sometimes goes somewhat astray, and trying to keep focus can be difficult. So if you've got a simple document that you read every other day, every week, whatever it is, will help to keep you focused. So as I say, a goal is a broad primary outcome, and an objective is a measurable step you take to achieve a goal. A strategy is the approach you take to achieve a goal, and a tactic is a specific action you use in supporting the strategy. Goals are dreams that you want to become reality. Goals can be short-term or long-term and are not necessarily tangible. They focus on the what you want to achieve and not how you want to achieve it. Goals are more valuable if they relate to specific timeframes, e.g., increase occupancy from 50 to 60% within 2 years. This also gives you direction. If an action is not getting results straight away, then don't panic. If it's a 2-year time frame, you may not see results in the first couple of months. Goals are more achievable when they are quantified. Figures and other measures should be included, and this helps break it down into realistic, achievable chunks for you to think about. As I say, importantly, goals and strategies should be realistic and achievable. And importantly, they should be flexible, because if something isn't working, you're not going to pursue it to the end of the day. You're going to change it, but don't change it at the first hurdle. Do some research and try and ascertain why that strategy may not be working. Maybe it's the way you're implementing the strategy, because it's all very well identifying and documenting them. Its implementation is the key as well. The distribution channels that you may be using, for example, and we'll have a look at that in a moment. So just how you might structure them in terms of a table. There are a number of ways in which you can document goals and strategies. For example, as we all do, you can go online to Google, and Mr. Google will throw up all sorts of templates for you. Some of them can be confusing. You just need to choose a basic one, or if you've got one in your own mind or one that you've used successfully in the past, all well and good. There's no right or wrong answer in terms of how you document it, as long as it is readable and as long as it's appropriate to your business. An acronym that people use quite often, as I'm sure you're well aware, is the SMART acronym. We can apply that in this instance, of course. So a progressive goal, for example, might be year one, get accredited. So all of you are looking to become accredited in the next few days, weeks, and a lot of other people as well at this time who are not necessarily with us this morning. So year one, you might get accredited. Year two, you might enter the tourism awards. Now, people who have looked at entering the tourism awards, I know from the past, have said, oh, it's very, very difficult. And I said, well, you know, it's only as difficult as you make it. If you go into it purposefully, and if you've particularly gone through the accreditation process, then entering the tourism awards is relatively easy. And vice versa. If you've ever been into the tourism awards, then achieving accreditation is a relatively easy process. And then in year 3, hopefully win the tourism award if you're a wonderful business. And I always remember there was a business in Dalesford, was a chocolate shop, and it was a retired school teacher and his wife, and they had so much passion for this chocolate shop. They won every award going, and it was only the 2 of them, and they made beautiful chocolates. And it was all down to the fact that they were able to write amazing documents. If you've got a background as a school teacher and you've got a passion for your business, it's amazing what you can achieve just by putting your thoughts and ideas on a piece of paper and translating them into actions. It's plenty of case studies out there to talk to. You've probably even got friends and neighbours that can provide you with that help and enthusiasm and motivation and everything else. Now, for each activity, it is important that somebody has ownership of it. You can't just write it down. So if it's more than one person, if you're a one-person band, well, it's all down to you, of course. But if there are 1 or 2 other people, just make sure that everybody knows what they are responsible for. And it's important to review those activities, as I mentioned just now, not just every year, but every quarter, I think, at the moment. So you're aware of what's working and what didn't. I'm just going back. So financial analysis, that's another component, if you remember, in the business plan, a very, very important component. What are the resources that you require financially in order to run this business and hopefully make a profit? What you will need to do is to, and the bank will require this of you, is what your current and forecasted revenue is, a budget. And a budget can be quite simple. Just make it an operational budget. I don't think you'll be getting into capital budgets per se. If you do, your accountant can probably help you with that, and depreciation and the like. What investment might be needed and the expected return, and then some assumptions surrounding that, that budget or the revenue that you are forecasting. Assumptions are very important because if people just look at a set of figures, banks and the like, or people like me want to say, well, you know, that's all well and good. What assumptions have you made that have led you to believe that you are going to achieve that, or indeed that you will end up cash flow positive and maybe, hopefully, making a profit of some description at the end of the year? Other things to consider is, you know, obviously where you will get the funds, what you'll be seeking from business partners or friends or relatives, government funding. The government can be a source of grants if you fit into certain categories. And how much of your own money will you contribute towards the business and what was realistic? And then, of course, you know, on assumptions, you know, with seasonal adjustment, drought, interest rates going up and down. And of course, there's never been a better time to borrow money than right now because interest rates are so low. So now we're coming into marketing planning. As I mentioned at the beginning, the marketing plan can be a standalone document. Personally, I like it to be a standalone document because then I can see what disciplines are being applied to this very important function. At the end of the day, the business plan is a document that, as I mentioned at the beginning, that sets the longer term goals and objectives across a range of disciplines for the business. The marketing plan is a plan that specifically addresses with a high degree of discipline on what you are going to do to get your product or service into the right market at the right price at the right time. So if you can get each of those in place, then you're doing really, really well. So Once you've documented your general business plan and goals, you can then begin to develop a marketing plan. The business plan does not necessarily need to be rewritten every year, by the way. I should just mention that. It's not something you need to rewrite come the 1st of January or the 1st of July. It is just something that needs to be tweaked and modified as you progress. Different set of circumstances right now, of course, because all bets are off and we're revisiting everything right now. But I'm talking about in general, because this time will pass and we will move back progressively over the next 2 to 3 years to hopefully where we were before. So in a marketing plan, we need to have a situation analysis, and that's never more important than right now. A market analysis, similar, competitor analysis, strategies, and goals. So, situation analysis. So we just need to look around us. What is the situation where I am, where I live? Am I running the caravan park in Warracknabeal? Or am I running a 5-star accommodation provider on St Kilda Road? Same principles apply. So where does your business fit within the market? High-end, competitive, budget, doesn't matter. As long as you know your market and where you want to sit within that market. That's the important thing. Don't try to be something that you're not. Don't overpromise and underdeliver. Importantly, underpromise and overdeliver. And then everybody will come running back and talking to their friends, and everybody tells 10 other people, and those 10 tell another 10, and you've got more business than you can hopefully cope with. But that's, you know, a dream, of course. Who is your target market? Tourism Research Australia provides a whole range of profiles across different market segments, and there's a very, very good resource. There are any number of resources out there, whether it's with Tourism Australia, Tourism Victoria, VTIC, and the like. And a lot of people are willing. We are all in this together. We're one big family in the tourism industry, as we know. We are all here to help each other. And when I visit doing accreditation site visits, it's not like Big Brother coming to inspect. When I sit down in the kitchen or the boardroom or anywhere in between, it's like sitting down, right, what are we going to do to make this better? It's not me saying, what are you doing to make it better? It's, I'm here to help and provide you with counseling and guidance, and you can accept that or not, as the case may be. But I'm there to be a sounding board, if you like. So what is your unique selling proposition, for example? And do visitors perceive this as valuable to them? As I say, know your market, and hopefully you'll be able to identify what a USP or what USP you might be able to construct. So offering a unique product or experience, obviously, developing a product for a niche market, pets, you know, with the increased numbers of people traveling by caravan these days. I mean, it's phenomenal. The caravan industry is gone bananas. You know, if you speak to Jayco and all the caravan manufacturers, you order a new caravan, and what's today? It's December. They'll say, right, we'll have it ready for you in June or July. It's amazing. But many of these people traveling by caravan have pets, for example, and they want to, say, be able to bring pets with them. So you might have an opportunity for pets. Now, we don't allow pets in cafes and restaurants, but there might be an area outside with a water bowl or something like that, where the pet feels that it's welcome as part of the family. Offering superior facilities and or services in relation to customers' expectations. As I say, exceed the expectations if you can. Offering a more efficient service than your competitors. So when you do research on the competitors in your town or in your suburb, you'll be aware of who the other accommodation providers are. You'll be aware of who the other food and beverage outlets, tour operators and the like. And inevitably you'll, you know, word of mouth, you'll get some feedback as to how good or maybe not quite so good, or where the gap is and where there may be falling short in customer service. And then you can capitalize on that. And then, of course, offering a price advantage or a package deal. Now, pricing is a very sensitive issue. Pricing can go up and down according to supply and demand, But as I say, you want to be very, very careful, as, and I'm sure you all know this, is an expression that I've used for decades, is to not get into the profitless volume business. You don't want to sell your product or service at a loss. Certainly, there are loss leaders, providing that's leading to a better turnover and increased profit, but profitless volume for the sake of the volume is not a wise strategy to employ. So demand and growth, is your product a once in a lifetime trip, a once in a few years trip, or an annual holiday? And how can you rely on repeat versus new visitors? So many businesses that I talk to say, well, 60% of my business is now repeat, which is fantastic because you've offered such an incredible service at an affordable price. And that's what we want to try and get to, is to increase the contribution from repeat visitation. So once you understand where you fit within the market and the value you provide to visitors, this will determine your marketing activities. So in terms of market analysis, how can you reach your target market? What distribution channels align with your target market and your budget? What promotional activities will align? And where does your pricing sit within the market? And is it realistic? And can you package with other operators? I'm sure you've all addressed each of those in your thought processes, but these are things that we need to get down on a piece of paper. So once you've identified your target markets, you'll be able to develop a customer profile, which will tell you how your target market thinks and behaves, what newspapers, magazines they're likely to read, when they're likely to travel, and what distribution channels you can use to reach them. And not surprisingly, of course, the retirement segment, people these days, I know a lady who's 95 and she's so proficient with digital technology that I can sometimes ask her how to actually access or use certain platforms to access or distribute a product. You'll be amazed how conversant seniors are these days with digital technology and the use of laptops, iPads, and other forms of digital communication. So define your target market in more detail if you can: the age, gender, social status, education, attitudes, lifestyle, values, needs, interests, buying habits, locations. They're all of these aspects are important to identifying who your target market is. And of course, geographic is important. You know, are we only catering for intrastate visitation or customers, people from Melbourne, or interstate from adjoining states, South Australia, New South Wales? Or are we looking for international inbound, which of course is not on the agenda at the moment, but hopefully will be back within the next 12 months. Distribution channels can include OTAs, online travel agents, the social media, as I've mentioned, travel agents, visitor information centers, and having a good relationship with your local visitor information center can be a very, very useful way of networking and getting your product into people that are transiting through your town or region. Visitor information centers are going through a transformation at the moment and are still a very, very relevant source of information for tourists. Even people that are using their tablets, I'm a classic. So, you know, I'll travel with an iPad or a laptop, but I'll always go into a local VIC because there's nothing better than talking to a local person to get advice on what is happening or where to eat or where to stay in a particular region, because local knowledge is the best knowledge. Traditional media, online media, and of course the Australian Tourism Data Warehouse, which is discounted for accredited tour operators to get access to that resource. Packaging your product, of course, with other tourism products, for example, accommodation and food, is one often cost-effective method which gives your business a competitive edge. Packaging represents an opportunity for small independent businesses to develop and sell a product to the travel industry. It also enables businesses to develop networks, as I mentioned, with other products in your region. This can make it more appealing for tour operators and wholesalers to take up your product, particularly if you are a single attraction or accommodation with a small number of rooms. And it can be very cost effective because it does not necessarily cost money to partner up with other products in your area. And networking is a very important part of this as well. Getting competitor information and insight. If you're networking with accommodation providers or restaurateurs and the like, it's amazing what sort of information you can source from your competitors in helping you to compile an effective marketing plan. So competitor analysis is very important, understanding who your competitors are. Now, I'm sure you're all aware of who they are, but exactly what it is they're offering and what their differences are to yours. So the location, we obviously know where they are, but what are their features? What are their pricing differences? What are their strengths and weaknesses? How much of the business or market share do they have? And how much of the market share you have or want to have or could maybe take from them because they are somewhat lacking in a certain area. So it's very important to undertake competitor analysis, see if there are any gaps, and conduct a SWOT analysis of your competitors by researching their social media, having a look at their websites and seeing where they're active in local social and online communication channels. Where I live, there are a number of social media communication channels which communicate all sorts of information about local providers. And if I was needing to compile a market analysis, it would be very simple to do within about an hour on who is providing what services at what price, and then subsequently identify the gaps in this area where I live. So strategies, goals and actions, how you document them is up to you. As I said in the earlier part of this session, the template that you use, there are any number of templates that you can access online by going through Google, but keep it simple. That's the primary objective. So the structure that I like to have is, first of all, to have it by, if you've got different market segments, so by each market segment, first of all, to have an objective, secondly, to have some strategies, and thirdly, some tactics, fourthly, the cost, fifthly, the target date of that action, and sixthly, who's responsible and what you expect, obviously, to be the outcome of those actions. Now, I can answer questions about that, but just to repeat, to have action, to have the goals and objectives initially, then the strategies to achieve the goals and objectives, the activities that underpin the strategies, the cost, the distribution channel, the timing, and the outcomes that you expect, and who is going to be responsible. There can be other things that you can put in. You can put in the advantages, the percentages that you want to achieve. Depends how complex you want this to become. Importantly, you should follow a plan that makes sense to you. Don't make it overly difficult. Otherwise, you can't see the wood for the trees. And I always used to say, years ago, there was a large organization that I was working for overseas, and we had an incredible market share. And my team of people say, how is it we're doing so well? So I said, well, look, apart from the product and the price and the service and everything else, I said, while the others are talking about it, we're doing it. So that's the important thing. Don't get too tied up in the bureaucracy around it. As long as you've got it documented, get out there and do it. Make it happen. So here we go. Here's another, just a little template that can list a number of activities and obviously the budget that you might apply and the time frame that you might apply to that as well. Similar thing coming up here, the message, the audience, who you're talking to, the activity, the timeline. Again, a different variation on what I've described to you. Okay, now I think I've probably exhausted all that I want to say about marketing planning. We've tried to address business planning and marketing planning in the space of about 45 minutes. In other worlds, which I'm sure a lot of you have come from, whether you're large corporate organizations, you can spend a week learning how to compile business plans and how to compile marketing plans, and then they will be the basic form, and then you'll come back a month later and learn about intermediate and advanced. What we've tried to do, or what I've tried to do, is just to provide you a little bit of an overview of some of the disciplines that will help you to provide a basic business plan and marketing plan that is relevant to your business and will help you to achieve your accreditation application. So maybe with that, I'll hand back to Grace, and then I'll be happy to elaborate if needs be or answer any questions afterwards. Thanks, Grace.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Derek. There was a lot to get through and you've managed to do so in the short amount of time we had. So thank you for your insights. So I do just want to go over how much detail is required for your accreditation application. And it depends if you're doing level 1 accreditation or level 2 accreditation. So for level 1, at a minimum, the 3 questions that need to be addressed in whatever documents you upload with your application are: what is your product differentiation? Who are your customers or target markets? And how are you going to attract customers? So that's the basics that we would need submitted. If you've got more than that, fantastic. If you've got a full business plan and a separate marketing plan that you've documented, or potentially you've had a consultant document for you, you can definitely upload those. But as Derek mentioned, it doesn't have to be pages and pages long. It can just be 1 to 2 pages. And as long as those 3 questions are included, that's enough for your accreditation. If you're doing level 2 sustainable accreditation, we need information on those 3 questions from level 1, plus these additional questions in terms of how are you positioning your product in the market, a competitor analysis, ideally a couple of lines for each aspect of your competitor analysis, over 2 to 3 competitors, details on your target market and what research you've done to justify your identified ways to connect with them. So, you know, are you only using Instagram because your target market is millennials and that's all that they use? Or are you using Facebook, or are you using a combination of the 2? So basically just why you've chosen those particular strategies. And again, yeah, how your marketing activities align with your target market. And again, it doesn't have to be pages and pages and pages. It can be 1 to 2, as long as you can include all of those details. That will be enough for your accreditation. And Derek, if you could go to the next slide, please. So there are the templates and support that we've mentioned throughout available in your online account. So when you're in the business and marketing planning section of your application, if you click on the blue question mark, that will bring up the templates and resources that you can download to fill out specific to your business. And there's more information throughout the whole application available by clicking on those blue question marks as you're going through. So please do make use of those resources. There is quite a lot in there, and I know sometimes people just skip over and they miss that the blue question mark is what you need to click on. So that's what to click on. Perfect. So I think that's it. I'm conscious we are very close to the end of our session. So if you do have any questions, please use the Q&A box down the bottom to submit those, and we can go through a couple. Just while we're waiting for people to start submitting, Derek, I've got a couple of questions. So you mentioned that you should be flexible with your goals and strategies, and if it's not working, then don't flog a dead horse. But how long would you say to keep going before you decide to change your strategy?
Well, it depends what the goal is. If it's quite a complex goal that requires considerable length of time to embed the strategy and get the market to be aware of it, then every situation is going to be different. So at the minimum, I would say for a strategy for, say, marketing a accommodation in the low season, then I wouldn't be, and it's a tactical situation that you're addressing, then if it's not seeing results within 4 weeks, then you'd want to be reviewing that. If it's a longer term goal with a 12-month attached to it, then the strategy that you would apply and then the underpinning tactics, you'd probably leave in place for maybe 4 to 6 months. So there's no golden rule. It's really aligned to how complex and how far out the objective has been set.
Okay, great, thank you. So we've got one coming through. So in the current situation with COVID, how far in advance, or I guess what's the recommended timeline if you're writing your business and marketing plan now? What would you suggest?
Well, for this current calendar year, as we're coming up to the end of the calendar year, so if I was talking about 2021, a business plan for 2021 should be, depending on whether you're an accommodation provider or whether you're food and beverage or a tour operator, will determine the level of detail. But obviously it is going to need to accommodate everything that we know and hear from the state and federal governments, international governments and transport operators in terms of how the market is perceived to be re-emerging. So this is a great unknown. So it's a classic example, as I said earlier on, of ensuring that your business plan is flexible. Because, you know, even this morning we're talking about the UK will start rolling out vaccinations next week. Australia possibly by March of next year. But the logistics surrounding the distribution of the vaccine might mean that it's towards the end of this coming calendar year before all vulnerable people have been vaccinated, for example. And I read this morning as well that don't expect to be able to travel anywhere out of the country until the second half of next calendar year. So depending on whether you're a local food and beverage provider in a country town, that's a totally different scenario. Your business plan just needs to reflect what your local business conditions are. It's a difficult time at the moment, and flexibility is the name of the game.
It really is, and I think we've all heard pivot and reimagine too many times this year. Final question before we wrap up. How much do you share about your business and marketing plan with the staff? And I guess how involved should they be in setting your strategies and your goals?
Well, I believe staff should be totally involved. That you, the owner or the operator, set the direction of the business. But I believe getting staff to contribute to the development of goals and strategies and tactics can prove invaluable, because they will have a different perspective and they will move in different circles. You know, I'm of a certain age category and I may employ people that are in their late teens or young 20s, and they will see my market totally differently and they'll say, you're missing an opportunity. So, and if you get them involved, they will then have a sense of ownership and commitment to it as well. So I think all of your staff, whether it's even the people that, if you've got a motel, for example, and you've got somebody doing gardening. You know, whenever I go and do star rating assessments, I don't just talk to the owner. I speak to the cleaners, I'll speak to the gardeners, and I'll speak to anybody that I'll come across to get their perspective on that business. You know, it's not snooping, it's just conversation, and it's amazing how much intelligence you can gather. And then when you ultimately talk to the owner, you piece it all together and you give them some feedback. And I'll say, oh, so-and-so and so-and-so said this, you know, it's fantastic. Oh, did they? So I said, absolutely. I said, go and talk to them. So, yep, I'm a great believer in including everybody that you possibly can within your business. And also, by the way, is also with members of your family who may not necessarily be working in the business or on the business. Share it with them as well and get an outsider's perspective.
Yeah, thank you. I think that is really important to widen the circle, because sometimes you can be so in your head with what you're doing with your business, and then it does take that outside perspective to spark that new idea or just to realign yourself with where you actually want to be going. Well, that's all we have time for today. So thank you, Derek. That was fantastic to hear your insights and your experience, even with your accreditation visits, how different businesses approach their planning and their marketing. Thank you everyone for joining today. So this session was recorded and we will email it out to you shortly. If you do have any questions as you continue working through your accreditation application, please get in touch with me. You can email at accreditation@vtic.com.au, or my phone number is 7035 5719. And I look forward to seeing all of your applications coming through soon. So our next workshop is on risk management on the 17th of December, same time, 10 a.m. And Derek will be back to facilitate that one for us as well. Hopefully I will see you all there. If you haven't registered, I'll also include the link in the email with the recording. And I look forward to seeing you all at that session. So thank you very much. Thank you, Derek, for your time. And I'll see you all in 2 weeks. Thank you.